Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Mark on the World show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe. I'm a Forbes contributor covering social entrepreneurship and impact investing. And our guest today is the remarkable Edgar Cahn. He's the founder of TimeBanks USA. You do not want to miss this remarkable discussion.
Welcome to Your Mark on the World, bringing you another changemaker with champion of social good, Devin D. Thorpe.
Edgar, welcome to the show.
It's good to be with you. Time banking has its own history, and I'd be happy to share that.
Well, we're excited to learn more about it. Edgar, you started your career as a speechwriter for Bobby Kennedy, didn't you?
That's right. They made the mistake of thinking because I had a PhD in English that I could write speeches, and they gave me the chance, and that developed a whole trajectory. And part of time banking really comes out in part out of the civil rights movement and that weird attempt in the war on poverty to promote maximum feasible participation. The insight there was that nothing we seemed to do worked if we didn't enlist the people whom we were helping as partners. And that awareness has driven me really to discover the incredible untapped capacity of community. I think time banking has two origins. It has an origin out of the civil rights movement and the discovery that if we don't enlist the people we're trying to help, our valiant efforts sooner or later evaporate. Me Too is an example of that kind of engagement, that belief that the persons who are defined as victims are in fact sources of strength and capacity and giving, and that they can be the catalyst for change. The other trigger was a heart attack in 1980 that blew away 60% of my heart. They gave me 2 years and maybe 2 hours a day I could function. And I began thinking in intensive care, I'm now useless. How do I use those 2 hours? Because if that's all I've got, I want those to be meaningful. And I think all of us get up in the morning asking, how can we make a difference? How can we matter? We would like to feel that we matter, that we're not just useless styrofoam to be thrown away when no longer of use. And so the personal drive that said, how do I begin to create a way in which I can be useful and a way in which those 2 hours can be useful, got me thinking about all the other people whom we declare useless. Persons over 65, little children who can help other little children, teenagers who can do things. Everybody can do things. And the more I became driven by that notion that I've got to use my 2 hours, the more I think I became really fully realized myself. So I'm 82, but at 80 I was bar mitzvahed. So I'm 83 now, going on 14 or 15. And I'm almost ready to grow up. So that's my sense that what that belief does.
So Edgar, you decades ago, you were told, you might not have long to live and that you would only be productive a few hours a day. Great insights came from that, but it seems that you've defied the odds. Are you able to work more than a few hours a day, or has that been an actual constraint on your life?
Only about 16 hours a day is about the best I can do right now, and only 7 days a week. That's the best I can do right now. My latest echocardiogram shows it's 85% healed.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I think that we don't understand mind-body, but I'm very sure that my spirit told those cells in ways that we don't understand that you got some work to do and you better get it together.
Yeah, that's amazing story, and we're glad that that's worked so well for you because you've done so much. I wonder, this time bank movement is really a big movement, thousands and thousands of people engaged in it, but still most people aren't familiar with it. I wonder if you would just give us an example or two of some of the operating time banks, how they work and who they benefit.
Well, right now, there are over 500 time banks that we know of in this country, and at least an equal number spread out over 38 countries. In Wales, it's actually recognized formally by the national government. Scotland just had a 2-week celebration of time banking and co-production. It's spread particularly over the UK. And I think that there are 3 real discoveries undergirding time banking. The first is that there's an economy that we've taken for granted, that we don't value. It probably doesn't do anything. It just raises children, makes strong families, makes neighborhoods safe, makes democracy work, and keeps the planet sustainable, but nothing important, you know.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of work. The amount of work that it takes to enable a family to keep an elder person out of a nursing home is now valued at something like $500 billion, 6 times what we spend in the formal medical care system. The same is true of raising kids. The same is true of the studies of collective efficacy, of what effort by neighbors makes neighborhoods safe. So that we know that there's a huge amount of unpaid labor that is critical. So valuing that labor, rebuilding, renewing that core economy, that's the ecosystem that's as basic as the ozone layer we took for granted and as the sustainability of the planet. We need that ecosystem as human beings. I came into the world not by myself. That was sort of co-produced by an egg and a sperm. And then I had a twin sister, so she did the hard work of pushing out first. So I know my birth was co-produced in certain kinds of ways. And I think all of us, the understanding that you can't outsource being a human being. And being a human being means you're part of the human family and all that that means. So the first piece was really understanding that there is a larger economic system than that which is driven and counted by money. The second piece is a discussion and a discovery on my part that money does some good things and some strange things. Money defines value by price. So if it's scarce, it's valuable. If it's more abundant, it's cheaper. If it's less abundant, or if it's really abundant, it's dirt cheap or it's worthless. And I suddenly realized that meant being a human being was worthless. And that's a monetary system devalues every universal that enabled our species to survive. Our ability to do strange things like listen to each other, care for each other, come to each other's rescue, stand up for what's right, oppose what's wrong, come together in small groups to undertake projects and initiatives. All of those are not scarce. That's what we are as a social animal. And so that I thought maybe we needed a medium of exchange that valued what it meant to be a human being, what it meant to use those universals to build the kind of ecosystem, the kind of world that we all wanted to grow up with and that we all wanted to leave behind us. And that involved designing another kind of money and looking at the characteristics of money and understanding what it would do if you change the characteristics of money, you change the dynamics that flow from it. So I went to the London School of Economics and I thought who's this screwball attorney coming out with this weird kind of money, and how can you have a kind of money where all hours are equal? And I'd eliminated price. So I had to learn their algebra to prove to them that it was at least theoretically feasible, and that there were 2 kinds of benefit. One was external benefit, or the other was the intrinsic benefit of how you feel about what you've done. And people will do a lot of things just to feel that they matter. We call it volunteering, but this really upgrades volunteering because it honors it as real work, not simply as a nice thing to throw in. The third discovery was, I mentioned the core economy, I've mentioned currency. The third C in my 3C thing is co-production. That I know when I give brilliant lectures that I've done a great job until I read the final exams. So that there's another partner in the learning process, and I've got to worry about whether they're motivated, whether they work, whether they talk to each other. The same is true of doctors. They give you prescriptions, but they can't produce health. The same is true of politicians. We can even elect good politicians, but if we don't have civic engagement, we don't co-produce the kind of democracy we need. So the same is true in mental health. The same is true with drug addiction. You name it, and no matter how brilliant we are as professionals, if we can't enlist the persons whom we're trying to help as our partners, we can't succeed. So
Yeah,
how you upgrade the labor that you need from them.
give us an example of an operating time bank, how it works and who it benefits.
Well, I'll give you an example of a time bank in a small town called New York City that is run by a small operation called the Catholic Church.
Okay.
And it runs a healthcare system called ArchCare. It delivers medical services of a quality sort, and doctors attend the patients. They have several thousand members, and they decided that in order to really provide the kind of care that was needed, what they needed to do was start a time bank. So for several years now, they've had a time bank that has over 1,600 members. It was written up in Catholic in this article, and the people in it do strange things. A person who's earning time banking had a spinal operation, and early in the morning, somebody came to help her eat breakfast, to help her comb her hair, and to help her brush her teeth. Probably not viewed as the most valuable skill tasks in the world, but it made the difference in her recovery. It's that basic. I know people who go away who actually need their dog walked, and their life surrounds their dog. I know people who would like to have their house painted. I know people who have faucets but don't know how to put in a washer. I myself have needed help because I celebrate this planet by planting something of 1,000 bulbs in the front yard here in Washington, D.C. And neighbors come from all over to both to help but to enjoy the sequence of colors and splashes of color that erupt in the spring. So I think it's the question. There are places where time banking has been used to make neighborhoods safe by setting up civic patrols, evening patrols at night that provide walking companions for seniors. I ran a youth. You can use it both to build and meld community, but you can also use it as a stream to generate specific programs. So in Chicago, in 27 schools, I virtually eliminated special ed by having the 5th graders help the 3rd graders with the alphabet and with reading. And they were paid in time, both were paid in time credits that they could cash in for a recycled computer, the recycled computers that the system was throwing away. And for 50 time credits, they could time hours, they could get a recycled computer. Then I ran for 10 years in Washington, D.C., a youth court where the kids earned time credits served on the jury. And at one point, 65% of all the kids being arrested came before a jury of teenagers earning time credits, and they asked them questions that only teenagers could ask, and they knew when they were getting lied to, and they knew when they were inflating what they did, and they asked them all kinds of questions about what's going on in your family and all kinds of questions that I, as a lawyer, could not have asked. And by the time they were finished, they had the authority given them by agreement of the Superior Court to sentence them in a diversion program to community service to pay back if they had damaged something. And the really harsh penalty was up to 9 weeks of jury duty. So they had to get up Saturday mornings. That's capital punishment for a teenager, you understand?
Yeah, right.
They reduced rearrests of kids from 34% to 6%. These are
Wow.
the bad kids doing that, earning time credits. We did the same thing with people coming back from prison. And first I asked them who they wanted to be, what they wanted to do. And did I want to should I call them ex-cons? And they said no, and they thought about what they wanted to be called. They said, well, we'd like to be called homecomers because we're coming home. I said, great. People will still ask, what the hell is a homecomer and what are you doing? And they said, well, if we could define ourselves as students, people would be less afraid of us. I said, well, I go to a university that has a community college, but you couldn't get in there. They said, well, could we create our own academy? I said, well, yes, I said, you can create a homecomers academy, but you got to have a curriculum. So they said, well, so they came back after hours and hours and days with a mind, body, spirit curriculum. And the mind part was looking at Power My Learning, which is an internet program that has all the best learning games. With the body part, they did with 12-step programs at Alcoholics Anonymous. And for the spirit, they earned time credits, providing safe passage to kids in Anacostia across gang territory. So that's what the Homecomers Academy did. Then you have Arch Care that deals with elder care. Then you have Parent Support Network, where parents who are single moms who were being in danger of losing their children because problems arose and they were charged with abuse and neglect. So they used time banking to create a collective, a sort of extended family. You know, my kids know all my buttons, but so they can set me off, but I'm brilliant with other people's kids. And so they all understood that if we could create a new kind of extended family, we could stop that, and not a single kid got taken away from them as a result of that.
Yeah.
So that gives you a sense of how it can be used in a general way, but also in a very sort of channeled, harnessed way.
Yeah, that's great. I really appreciate those examples. Edgar, you've had a remarkably impactful career. What is the most important lesson you've learned over your career?
I think we have what we need if we use what we have. And human beings are awesome. I think the capacity, you know, we need to transform professional training so that every professional who knows we know how to ask, what's your problem? We don't know how to ask, who are you? And we're looking at people who are miracles. And if we unleash that capacity, we have what we need if we use what we have.
Edgar, you have clearly made the idea of social justice central to your entire life. Why is that so important to you?
Well, my father was a legal philosopher who told me that he thought human beings could never fully comprehend or reach justice. But he thought we were endowed innately with a capacity, with a sense of injustice, with an ability to recognize and respond to disparities that felt unfair, disparities that we felt we should not tolerate. And so he defined justice for me as the process of either preventing or remedying whatever would arouse, whatever would trigger that sense of injustice. So I grew up really feeling that I had a reason to get up in the morning, which was to respond to and be awakened to that as the quest for justice. My late wife was African American, and when we were married in the 50s, that marriage was illegal in both Maryland and Virginia. And we were subjected to all of the kinds of discrimination and all the kinds of stereotypes that interracial marriages had in that day. And all we did was go to Yale Law School, start legal services, and start a new kind of law school called the UDC David A. Clark School of Law that is now, in effect, the prototype. And as of last year, clinical legal education is a requirement for accreditation of every law school in the United States. Then we had to develop time banking. I had to learn about software, because how else could you learn you put 10 people in a room, they can do 200 or 500 things, but you can't remember what they could do. So I had to develop a new kind of software. And then other kinds of software crept up, and did I want a monopoly? And I thought, no, I need to partner with the other groups that have bought the values but may use another kind of software. So in TimeBanking UK, the United Kingdom has its kind of software. Spice has its kind of software. Now a new kind of software is coming up, an organization called Ying, which is taking it to a whole other level on the West Coast. So I'm beginning to see the emergence of different kinds of time banks. And so long as they buy into the core value that 1 hour still equals 1 hour, where that 1 equals 1 piece is a fundamental affirmation that this slice of eternity is all you got. And it's not worth more, but it's not worth less than anybody else's slice of eternity. And when you center on that sense that we're here and it's a gift that we have to be here and to have that slice of eternity and to make the best use of it we can to help others and to make a difference in the world, that's what drives me.
That's great. Edgar, what is your superpower?
I think it's my ability to see in people what they don't even see in themselves, which is how awesome they are.
That is a really powerful power. And I'm glad that you shared that. Edgar, it's been a delight to have you today. And I out of respect for your time, we're going to let you go. But before you go, can you tell people how they can learn more about TimeBanks USA and connect with you personally?
They can go to the website timebanks.org, and that will link to other time banks around the world. And my personal email address was a gift to me by Cesar Chavez. I trademarked his eagle. His motto was "Si se puede," and he gave me yes. So I am yes we can at AOL.com. That's my email address, and that's how you get to me personally.
Great. Edgar, thank you so much for being with us today. We wish you every success in the great work that you continue to do.
It's a privilege. Thank you.
All righty. Let's do some good.
Thank you for listening. This podcast was recorded via Google Hangouts on Air and is available at youtube.com/Devin Thorpe. Subscribe to this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes by searching for Your Mark on the World. Every weekday, Devin hosts a CEO, celebrity, entrepreneur, or other changemaker here on the Your Mark on the World show to inspire and prepare you to make your mark. Devin is a champion of social good, writing about, advocating for, and advising people who are doing good. He is a Forbes contributor who is a recognized thought leader in social entrepreneurship, impact investing, and crowdfunding. To book Devin as a speaker, visit devinthorpe.com. Learn more about Devin's work at yourmarkontheworld.com.